Mussolini video essay. Question: to what extent were Mussolini's domestic policies successful? Hello, my name is Johann Weiss, and today I would like to talk about Mussolini's dictatorship in Italy during the years 1919 to 1939 and his domestic policy under the question: to what extent were Mussolini's domestic policies successful? Firstly, we need to examine the reasons for the rise of fascism in Italy. To do this, it is important to look at the unstable state in which Italy was in the years following World War I. There was a general disgust in Italy at the terms of the Paris peace treaties in 1919. Italy felt that their demands were being ignored by the other Entente powers as they had not received the sought-after territories. Unstable economy and democracy in Italy following World War I facilitated Mussolini's coup to bring the fascist party to power. In these years, there was a public attitude of believed failure towards the government and especially towards the Prime Minister Vittorio Orlando. Although Italy had been one of the victor states, they were not rewarded as desired and did not receive territories in Dalmatia, which were instead given to Serbia. Italy had only joined the Entente powers in World War I as they were promised new territories by Britain and France, which would help them to become a major European power that could compete with Britain, France, and Germany on the international stage. This unfulfilled promise made the outcome of World War I that much more devastating for the Italian people, who viewed it as a mutilated victory. With unemployment at record highs, failing agriculture, and close to 1.3 million war casualties, the people felt betrayed by politicians and were now open to new ideas. Furthermore, there was a growing fear of communism throughout Europe, and in Italy the fascists represented a means to stop the socialists and the communists. Although Mussolini was not elected into power directly, he managed to gain a lot of support from important people in Italy. This included wealthy industrialists and landowners who feared socialist reforms. Mussolini also later gained support from Pope Pius XI and the Vatican, who saw the fascists as an opportunity to normalize state-church relationships. By having the Catholic Church support his rule, Mussolini was able to ensure that the common people throughout Italy would be on his side, as they were very religious and dedicated to the Church. Now that we understand the setting in Italy at the time and how Mussolini was able to gain power, we will be able to understand his policies better. Mussolini understood that post-World War I, Italy was poor when compared to Britain and France. In order to improve the economic state of Italy, Mussolini introduced a number of policies, some more effective than others, in order to increase the well-being of the Italian economy and decrease its reliance on foreign goods. Mussolini identified 4 areas that had to be improved in order for Italy to become the great nation he had envisioned and rise from the ashes of World War I. These areas were usable land, grain production, currency, and population. His first attempt was to make Italy more self-sufficient by introducing 2 battles. This included the battle for land, which aimed to increase the amount of usable land to make space for agriculture and infrastructure. The second was the battle for grain, or Battaglia di Grano, in which Mussolini attempted to increase Italy's grain production in order to limit outside dependence in case of conflict. All of Mussolini's policies were heavily supported by the use of propaganda for communication. The battle for land was moderately successful, although the success was generally exaggerated by propaganda. In order to gain land, massive marshlands were drained to create space for farming projects, battle for land, as well as new roads and railroads. Overall, the battle for land managed to create an additional 80,000 hectares of farmable land, but more importantly managed to create many new jobs. However, the figures published in propaganda claimed the retrieved land to have been up to 3 times as much. The battle for land also improved the image of Italy abroad. Foreign countries gained the perspective that Italy was able to undertake major projects in order to improve its public health. This was very important for Mussolini as it tied into his fascist goals. This policy was somewhat successful not only because of the land regained, but because of the impact on job creation and because it increased Italy's image abroad. The battle for grain which was introduced in 1924, on the other hand, was less successful for a number of reasons. The policy aimed to increase the production of wheat and grain inside Italy by offering farmers subsidies to farm said product. The goal of this was to make Italy's food supply self-sufficient to limit reliance on other countries in case of conflict. Although grain production doubled in Italy, this policy was an economic disaster. As world grain prices dropped to levels where importing would have been cheaper, Mussolini set import tariffs on foreign agriculture goods in order to increase demand for local goods. However, this policy raised prices for the domestic consumer, especially the price of bread rose considerably, which hit the poor badly as it was an important part of their diet. Because of the strong incentives to produce grain, many farmers stopped producing other goods that would have been more beneficial for the economy and society. For example, wine and grape production, which was very profitable for export, decreased significantly, and because of the high import tariffs on foreign goods, other countries were not willing to buy Italian goods as a result. Overall, wealthy farmers benefited the most from this policy, as they were guaranteed high prices for their produced grain. Another major drawback was that in order to keep grain production high, expensive machinery and fertilizer was required. As the fertilizer was produced abroad and had to be imported to keep production going, the system was very counterproductive and did not contribute to Italy's self-sufficiency. Overall, a more successful economic policy would have been to increase the production of tradable goods and use the export profits to buy grain on the international market. After World War I, the Italian currency, the lira, was very inflated and had little buying power. For Mussolini, everything about Italy was supposed to be strong, including the currency. In 1926, when the policy was introduced, the lira was trading at 150 to the British pound. This policy, called the Battle for Lira, attempted to deflate the lira by limiting the amount of currency in circulation and lowering interest rates in order to increase its value. Mussolini launched the Quota 90, which aimed to bring the lira to a value where it was trading at 90 to 1 with the British pound. In 1927, this level was reached. However, the consequences once again outweighed the benefits. The increased value of the lira made Italian goods significantly more expensive. This led to less Italian goods being purchased, which hit the Italian export sector severely. With no buyer for export goods, many companies had to lay off employees and cut wages. Rising unemployment also led to a decrease in national income. However, import goods also became cheaper as a result of the stronger currency. This, however, did not impact the consumer. As many import products were taxed very highly to promote domestic goods. The impact was rather on heavy industries and the military that relied on importing raw materials. Cheap imports helped facilitate Italy's rebuilding its army, which was very important for the invasion of Absidia in 1935. Overall, although the trade quota was met, success of the policy was very limited because it hindered economic growth and was more of a Pyrrhic victory. Mussolini believed that in order for Italy to achieve her imperial and nationalistic goals, a larger population was required. The battle for births aimed to increase Italy's population from 40 million when the policy was launched in 1927 to 60 million by 1950. To achieve this ambitious goal, many incentives were created to encourage reproduction. In Mussolini's fascist society, the role of women was to get married and have children. One of the incentives for having children was tax benefits. Each child decreased the tax burden on a family by a certain percentage, and families with more than 6 children were completely exempted from taxation. The RUCO criminal law of 1932 banned contraception, abortion, and sterilization. Mussolini also introduced many programs to increase post- and prenatal care. This helped improve the health of children and parents. Overall, however, the battle for births was not successful. The population of Italy only rose to 47.5 million by 1950, and birth rates were even declined during this period. However, the slight increase in population can somewhat be tied to the battle for birth because the increased awareness and attention towards medical care helped increase life expectancy. The use of propaganda in fascist Italy was very important for Mussolini to spread ideas of nationalism and implement the fascist ideology in every Italian. Mussolini used propaganda in relation with every single policy and had very close ties with the Minister of Propaganda, Galeazzo Giano, who was also his son-in-law. Mussolini used effective propaganda to depict himself as Italy's new messiah. He also commonly showed himself as a family man, great musician, or brave conqueror. All of this was meant to show the Italian people that they had a great leader and thus lived in a great country. Propaganda was also often used to inform the public of Italy's success, whether domestic, such as the battle for lands, or foreign, such as the invasion of Abyssinia. Mussolini, with his propaganda, was able to convince the public that Italy was a great nation and that he was a great ruler. Propaganda was also used as a tool to educate the youth. Girls and boys were enrolled in youth programs from an early age, in which the fascist mindset and glory of Italy was strongly emphasized. Young groups such as the Balilla organization promoted physical exercise and military training for boys from an early age. The female equivalent, Piccole Italiane, focused more on the motherhood and domesticity. Italian public education was also strongly focused on the greatness of Italy. Textbooks were rewritten with emphasis on the Roman Empire and other aspects of Italian pride. Catholic education was also introduced after the Lateran Treaty. Overall, the use of propaganda was necessary and effective for Mussolini to establish and maintain his role as dictator of Italy, as he was able to convince the public of his greatness and the greatness of the Italian state. Mussolini's domestic policies were often very idealistic and did not focus on the real problems in Italy. By trying to achieve the perfect fascist state, Mussolini's policies often took one step forward and two steps back. For example, the battle for Lira was successful in that it managed to meet the set trade quota. However, the damages to foreign trade, increased unemployment, and high consumer prices made the overall results negative. As all the policies tie together in one way or another, the trend becomes clear. Overly ambitious goals set by the fascist ideology and potential of glory for Italy often hindered Mussolini from making pragmatic decisions that would have helped Italy progress. In summary, Mussolini's domestic policies made some progress, were subject to very strong propaganda, but did not achieve its self-declared objectives. Thank you for watching. I'm done with this.